Hello, my name is Brody McGowan, and we are here once again with another episode of the For the Fans podcast. This episode will be extra special for some reasons that we will list later. However, I would first like to introduce our special guest here, who is Micah Bohenstengel, or Bohenstengel.
Yes, that is Bohenstengel.
I think that it's finally time to talk about the Stellars here. Yeah, and I just said that in a Pittsburgh accent because my man's over here, he's from Pittsburgh.
Yes,
so
I am.
We are happy to go through the Steelers, and later on we will have a couple of special announcements that should definitely excite everyone here. So Micah, my first question for you is, how did you become a fan of the great Pittsburgh Stellar Nation? Shout them out.
So, it's funny for me to be a Steelers fan, considering that I was actually born in Cleveland, believe it or not. Only lived there for a couple years. And then whenever I was about 5, I ended up moving to Pittsburgh. I lived in Chicago for a couple years too, but that's besides the point. So I had a kindergarten teacher and I didn't really watch football before, I was 5 or whatever. But I had a kindergarten teacher. She had terrible towels all around the room, loads of Steeler gear. And so I got into the Steelers, and then I got into, the other two Pittsburgh sports teams, the Pirates and the Penguins, a little bit later. But, yeah, and then whenever I was in kindergarten, I think it was around the time we beat Arizona in the Super Bowl, and so that was really exciting too. Of course, I don't remember much from that actual game in terms of watching the game because I was like 6 years old or 5 years old, but very good game, and I'm glad we won it, and San Antonio Holmes, absolutely elite.
I actually do remember the Arizona game, if you want me to be honest. I am a Steelers fan as well, so if this has not been put open, we're talking about the Steelers here today. But we're actually going to do something a little bit different, and we're just going to get straight into the recap of last week's game against Cincinnati, which is what we intend to focus on here today. With that, however, before we get into the game against Cincinnati, I would just like to mention that this will actually be the beginning of our first ever series on this channel, where we will be doing weekly Steelers recaps here, me and Micah. So every single week, this one in particular is a little bit later than the ones that we will be doing later on in the week. However, you can normally expect these videos to be out by about the Tuesday after the Steelers play. And if it is a Thursday night game or a Monday night game, it would be about the Saturday or the Wednesday after they play, as it will take a couple days for me to do some of the editing that we normally do here. But with that, let's get into Pittsburgh against Cincinnati. So, that game gave me like 15 heart attacks.
Right, yes. And that's just a typical Steelers football game, is it not? We've seen this many times with the Steelers, with the Ravens games last year. I think one of them came down to the Ravens going for 2 points. That was one I remember in particular, as well as not just that, but the Steelers-Ravens game that went to overtime last week of the season. Not only did you get a heart attack from that, but Raiders versus Chargers on that Sunday Night Football, if you remember that. It very nearly ended in a tie, which was the one result that could eliminate us from the playoffs, but thankfully it did not. But
yeah, the Steelers have this thing where they like to just give all their fans heart attacks.
They really do. And those of us that are Steelers fans definitely... if you're a Steelers fan, you'll know exactly what we're talking about here.
Yeah, it's just like you can never be certain about anything with this team. And it comes to last week's game, let's just get into that in particular. So in the beginning of that game, Micah was there for the beginning of that game. I was at a Walmart checking the score on my phone, like the real fan that I am. Sarcastic there.
Yes, of course.
But the defense was just going lights out. I expect Cincinnati to go in there and kill us.
Because that's exactly what they did last year. They tore up our defense. They absolutely tore them up.
My expectation was Cincinnati was going to go in there and kill them.
Yes.
So the fact that I saw that we were up 17 points, it was just like, oh my God.
Well, the one thing I did remember from last year was that we went into Buffalo week 1 and we upset the Bills, who then were a team that absolutely could have won the Super Bowl with the talent on their roster. And so I was very glad that we beat them.
Yeah, no, definitely. This seemed like kind of a repeat of the Bills game, but in a much more dramatic fashion.
Very, very dramatic fashion.
It was oh my God. So
yeah, we were watching the end of the game together, and we were going crazy.
Yeah.
You start off the game with Joe Burrow, first pass of the game, first pass of the season. He throws a pick 6 straight to Minkah Fitzpatrick. He's actually got his jersey on right now.
Let's go.
Minkah Fitzpatrick. But yeah, that's safe to say that trade worked out.
After Minkah's pick 6, the Steelers defense was just still in general playing
Very,
lights out.
very good.
They were making turnovers. They were playing. They were playing
Yes,
out of their minds.
they
And
were.
I think that a couple players need to be mentioned for this. Alex Highsmith had
Yes,
a very good game.
very good game.
Very good game.
But yeah, he is also as good of his game as he had. He probably needs to be a big factor in these next few weeks without TJ. That's going to be very important towards our defensive success.
Yes, I would certainly agree.
What round was he picked in, by the way? Third, okay.
I would also say that in general, it was a general great performance by the defense.
Oh, yeah, of course.
And you had 5 turnovers on the day.
Minka's pick 6 was a great way to start the game for the defense. A great catalyst to, stop Joe Burrow and any momentum because, the crowd was obviously hyped up. You have to go in and punch them hard, punch them early. That's the way you got to do it when you're on the road. AFC North road games are pretty tough to do. Tough road environments, Cleveland, Cincinnati, and Baltimore. And that's what you just got to do. You got to shut them down early.
So the defense was doing their normal defense stuff. Cam Hayward did an interception. TJ Watt did an interception. However, the offense was never able to convert this really into points.
No.
So you technically went into there with, I think it was a 17-6 lead, but that was before they had a 14-3 lead, which then turned into a 17-6 lead off of 2 turnovers. However, the Steelers were just not able to put the ball in the end zone, which was kind of a catalyst, and this made me feel like even when the game looked out of reach, when we were up by that much, it was like, this isn't over.
Yeah, no, because even when our defense would have takeaways and we would be well within Bengals territory, we would have to settle for a field goal. And I think that there was one big play. It was a pass, and then we ended up getting in deep into the red zone, and we were able to score there. But other than that, there was just a few big plays, but not much else from our offense. I would have liked to see us run the ball better, but of course, what can you do with that O-line?
That is something that is a catalyst we'll talk about later. But both Cincy and Pittsburgh's offensive lines were just, to be honest, not very good in this game. Cincy's offensive line, they spent money on it,
right.
And that was kind of something that I think will get figured out throughout the year. While Pittsburgh's offensive line might be the worst unit in football.
Yes, that was
pitiful.
That was sick to watch.
I think that we should discuss, so essentially what happened next was the main catalyst to me believing that this game might have not been over as quickly as we all thought that it was Cincinnati was able to drive down the field and shred Pittsburgh's defense thanks to a nice run by Joe Mixon, who looks like he should be pretty good. He looks like he should have a pretty good season.
Yes.
And as a result of that, they were to get 3 right before half. And that was like, oh no, they might have figured out our defense. Because when your offense does absolutely nothing on the field, should be mentioned, the offense was doing nothing on the field. Nothing. Literally nothing. So,
and here's the other problem with that, by the way, too, if I can mention this, is that when you go 3 and out, as often as our offense seems to go, you do understand that brings the defense right back out on the field, and they're already tired. They're already making loads of great plays. On a certain sense, that's kind of the offense's fault, even for the defense, for some of the miscues that they had, which were not very many.
Yeah, no, definitely. The offense needs to get better. However, I feel like we're going to move on to the second half. So during the second half, the first team, Pittsburgh, just continued to do their 3 and out. There were a lot of questionable play calls, which we will talk about later, at least on the offensive side of the ball. But what happened was it was just 3 and out. And Cincinnati eventually, even though Pittsburgh had a nice interception by Cam Sutton, which was a play that happened in that second half, and they had another nice takeaway as well, which I believe was a fumble. So with that, you're kind of now talking about what is essentially pretty much a game that seems very winnable for Cincinnati as you're going down the stretch. However, down the stretch is where this game went from okay
to absolutely just bonkers.
Absolutely. Oh my God.
So let's just recap here, if we can quickly do that. So the Bengals, I think we're talking last 7 minutes of the fourth quarter. The Bengals fail to score. We get the ball back, and we're thinking, okay, if you could please just get a field goal that would make it a 2-possession game, and from there the game's basically over.
Run out
But
the
the
clock.
problem is that they go 3 and out, then the defense is back on their heels. Now they get another stop, and the Steelers have the football with around 2 minutes to go, and you literally need 1, maybe 2 first downs.
Of course, this offense
3 and
cannot
out.
get this.
Because it's just sick how
Najee
how
Harris
they're
also gets hurt on this drive.
Right.
And it should be noted that there was a 3rd and 12 where they're running a jet sweep to chase Claypool.
Exactly.
So when we
Cannot
discuss
stand Matt
ultimate
Canada.
losers of this game, Matt Canada's name should be mentioned.
He should have been fired long ago, but particularly after that game, I mean, immediately after the game, should have been fired. I mean, and the fact that we won, if we would have lost that game, I mean, you could be talking about. I'm not saying he would have been fired, but I'm saying there is definitely a chance that could have happened.
Definitely, but we'll move on to that when we talk about winners and losers. But from there, so now Cincinnati's marching down the field, and they get down to what is essentially the goal line on a 3rd and 10, and there's a penalty on Pittsburgh, which resets the downs, and Pittsburgh holds them out 3 straight times from the end zone, and then there are 4 seconds left, and Cincinnati goes back to pass on like 3rd and 5, 3rd and goal essentially, and Jamar Chase is very good at football, and of course he scores from there.
There were also multiple occasions where he had a catch that the foot was barely out of bounds because they pushed him out. I think what happened was they were like 30, 40 yard line, and then we basically had them flag, extend the drive, but then stop them 3 straight times at the goal line, and then another time, and then there's another flag, and then all of a sudden, 4 seconds to go, they throw it into the end zone, touchdown Bengals, and of course, everybody thinks the game is over because, it's all they have to do is kick the extra point and
Evan
win.
McPherson is...
But this is the Steelers. This is Steelers
football.
So, of course, there has to be some crazy stuff that happens in a Steelers game.
Exactly. So Minka goes up and blocks this kick, and you're just like, oh my God. We didn't even watch that play.
Yeah.
We turned off the TV, ran into the other room, full explosion, and then then Micah comes in to yell at me.
Yeah, I was
getting ready to just be depressed. And so Micah comes in to yell at me. He's like, Brody, they missed the field goal. I'm like, what?
I was walking down the hallway, and I'm looking at the fantasy app, and I click on the Steelers game, and I read Evan McPherson missed PAT. And I walked straight back to his room because that's where we were watching the game. And I'm yelling. I'm like, Brody, get out here. He just missed the extra point. We're going to overtime.
And I'm like...
That was quite something. I was in shock.
That is the reason why we should pay Minka Fitzpatrick double of what he's currently making. But that's regardless. That is completely regardless. We should be paying Minka Fitzpatrick double of what he was making. Because that was maybe one of the best plays that I have ever seen out of any player.
Yes.
To single-handedly block the PAT to send the game into overtime.
Literally saved the game.
It literally just pulled up and saved the game. And Minka may have had the best game of his entire career.
Yes.
So, at that point, I was just in complete and utter shock because we're going into overtime. And, of course, I go out there, and in my mind, I'm debating. If we get the ball first, should we actually take it? Because remember, back in the day when it was like, you're just going to put the defense out first. And I'm like,
well, the only reason you wouldn't do that is because if they score a touchdown, which, but this is Steelers and Bengals. It's not Bills and Chiefs.
Yeah.
But you would never give the other team the ball first if you have the opportunity.
Actually, we used to do that. We did that a couple times in the Duck Hodges years.
Did we really?
Yes, we did.
That's weird.
We did that, I think, multiple times.
Was it?
We're getting the ball in offense first. Let's get a couple first downs.
And they
immediately punt. Then march down the field.
There's
you were literally you were literally like, this game is over. Remember, we were like, this game is straight up over.
Yeah,
it's because Hayden Hurst made that incredible catch, and you're like, he's not going to miss another field goal.
And then
he does.
Lo and behold, and this isn't even a block either. This is a straight up 29-yard field goal missed by a professional kicker whose job it is.
Well, it should be mentioned that they had their backup long snapper or holder or something.
Yes, that is true.
Yes.
And by the way, so for those that don't know, when it comes to kicking field goals, when you're holding the ball, if you're the holder, laces are supposed to be facing out. I noticed the laces were actually facing in, and that people said is why he might have missed it.
Yes. So with that being the case, it was a missed field goal, and you're just like, oh my God, we are still in this game. And so with that being the case, the Steelers go down again.
They have a little bit of a drive.
They make this catch by Deontay Johnson.
Incredible catch.
I swear may have been
incredible catch.
One of the best catches that I've ever seen. And I watched all of Antonio Brown's professional football career.
Yes.
And Deontay Johnson goes up one hand, 2 feet in downs. Oh my God.
That was
freaking incredible. That was holy shit. I do not think that I've ever seen a play that year. And that was just, even Roethlisberger then went on his podcast and was like, yeah, that was one of the best catches that I've ever seen.
Yeah, that was a crazy catch.
And of course that drive still leads to nothing. But
was that not?
That was not the game-winning drive.
I know.
So essentially that drive, just because of Deontay pretty much, led to a Boswell 56-yard field goal, which he missed.
Hit the post.
It hit the post, which was just because everyone's like, it's Chris Boswell. Chris Boswell's one of those kickers.
And at this point in the game, there's about 2 minutes. Evan McPherson is to an extent, but 56-yarder, you don't blame him too much for missing that. There's about 2 minutes left in the game. At that point, the Bengals have a little bit of a drive, and so bad snap. They have the ball around the 50. Guy screws around with it and fumbles it. And the Bengals, they get back to around the line of scrimmage. However, there's a rule that within 2 minutes, if a player fumbles the ball and another player from his own team tries to possess the ball, it's actually ruled a dead ball. Now, this rule is actually done to prevent teams from intentionally fumbling out of desperation to fumble to other teammates as a way of essentially laterals. But this also applied here, and so the Bengals had the ball around around midfield essentially.
The 30 to the they could have had the ball around the 30 to the 35.
It'd been a very long field goal, but then it was around.
However, it ended up becoming a 50, which would have been like a 67-yard field goal, which of course no kicker can hit. So now Cincinnati of all teams is forced to punt because of a technicality rule.
Yes.
So as a result of this, Cincinnati punts. Pittsburgh gets the ball, drives down in overtime. Pat Freiermuth pretty much just pulled up and became prime Heath Miller.
I do have a couple things that I want to mention about that punt. So first off, I don't agree, and sometimes I do not agree with playing for a tie. And this is not a situation. Okay, if you have the ball on your own 20 with a minute to go in overtime, then in that case, yes, you'd punt. But to me, I think if you have the ball at midfield, to me, I mean, I know that it was a lot of distance to go to get to the first down marker. I understand that, and I understand it's a long field goal. But there's also the fact that the play clock, I don't know if you noticed, but the Bengals could have ran the play clock down another 15 seconds in order to give the Steelers less time. That is another key thing that I wanted to make note of.
Yes, you could debate the logisticality of them punting. As some people have used it, they could have maybe just gone for it for 20 yards. I mean, they have Jamar Chase and one of the best offenses in football. I mean, the Steelers have been dominating them for most of the day, but you could debate if maybe even gone for that. But at the end of the day, they did decide to end up punting. So the Steelers then proceeded to drive down the field. Mitch Trubisky played probably his best drive all day.
Yes.
As him and Pat Freiermuth, who had probably the best drive of his career, as Pat Freiermuth essentially literally drove them down. Boswell kicks the field goal with 4 seconds left, and the Steelers win.
53 yards out, and the Steelers win it. And they actually, I should mention as well, they had a tie last year with the Detroit Lions, where I believe there was a play where Freiermuth had the ball, and I think he fumbled, and if he would not have fumbled, there would have been an opportunity for Boswell to kick a game winner in that game as well. So it's good to see that Freiermuth clutched up on this drive, and I'm glad to see that he's improved.
Yeah, definitely. It's good to see that Freiermuth is is definitely taking improvements. And Freiermuth is starting to prove that he might become an elite tight end someday. So with that, I want to talk about some winners and some losers for this game. And it should be mentioned that probably the first loser is the Steelers on the behalf of T.J. Watt's injury.
Right.
I think that this needs to be mentioned.
Yes.
So we all see T.J. Watt go out of the game during the first defensive drive in overtime. And people were like, he tore his pec, he's out for the season.
Yeah, and
Looking
that
back,
would be horrible news.
that would be the end of the season.
It would.
It would literally just be like, okay, season's over, wrap it up.
Yeah, he had that much of an impact on the game just from watching that one game. If T.J. Watt's not there, honestly, probably double-digit loss.
T.J. Watt is the best defensive player in football. That should be mentioned. And I don't think that it's close for any people from Cleveland, for any people from maybe Dallas.
Even was on, I think, Monday or Tuesday, it was reported that he is not going to need surgery, so he will not be out for the season. He will be out, I believe, until mid-October is what it was said.
That was the top 10 day of my life.
Yes, and then it should also be mentioned that Najee Harris is going to be, it looks like he will be playing for New England this upcoming week. He might not be at 100%, but it does appear that he will play.
Yes. I recently traded for Najee Harris, took him for Micah in my fantasy league.
That is,
so,
yes, he did.
Good news, Najee Harris is playing this week. And so my first winner, well, the winner is T.J. Watt for playing an awesome game. And my loser would be the Steelers for potentially losing T.J. Watt. But now, I guess if you're going to discuss my first winner, Minkah Fitzpatrick played the best game of his NFL career. I think the blocked field goal.
Pick six, blocked field goal.
Forced fumble.
Huge game for me.
Yeah. And my third winner, this is going to be an underrated one, Cam Sutton. Cam Sutton played really good the other day. He played really, really well. He was all up in there, that fourth down conversion to Jamar Chase in the end zone where they knocked them out there in the first half, preventing that touchdown. That was a great play by Cam Sutton. Cam Sutton did the interception. I think Cam Sutton might have played his best game as an NFL pro.
I should also mention that Alex Highsmith had a very impressive game as well. You put a lot of pressure on Joe Burrow, you can potentially force a lot of mistakes, and that's exactly what happened. The Steelers had 5 takeaways, as well as, I should mention, Mitch Trubisky wasn't necessarily what you'd call an excellent game, but the fact that he did not turn the ball over with all that pressure on him, I think there's something to be said about that.
Yes, definitely. I wouldn't consider Mitch Trubisky a winner because he didn't necessarily have a great game.
But he didn't lose the game.
However, the fact that he did not lose the game, he did not throw a turnover, he did not throw an interception, he did not fumble, that is a win. My next winner is Deontay Johnson.
Yes.
Did we not have the whole section about why that was one of the greatest catches that I've ever seen?
That was a very good catch, yes.
I think single-handedly that makes Deontay Johnson a winner. My final winner is Pat Freiermuth for that final drive. But I think we should finally discuss some losers. My first loser, Matt Canada. Matt Canada needs, honestly...
He need to be fired, beyond
last
now.
year.
Beyond now.
He's not... We've been saying for years that his system is this college system.
Yeah.
But if it's a college system, then why is freaking
It just doesn't work. It's as simple as that.
Running end arounds? Why is it the same first down, run the ball for 2 yards? Second down, run the ball for 1 yard. Third down, chuck some 3-yard slant or something.
Oh, yeah. And I hate when he just has him throw it right over the middle on a 3rd and 14. That's just sick stuff. I mean, how can you expect to win football games like that?
Or do not forget about the honest truth of the end rounds that sometimes work, but 99% of the time don't. And it's just the Matt Canada playbook is just it's not up to par. It's predictable. You know what you're doing before you see it. And I mean, I doubt Matt Canada is a bad guy or anything, but he's shown maybe that he does not have the capability to do what he's doing. And it's shown in the fact that he got Najee Harris hurt, and in the fact that his play calling is is uber predictive, and that he refuses to throw the ball down the field, to be pretty much frank.
Yeah.
Which I think Trubisky is a good enough of an arm.
Trubisky absolutely can. I think Trubisky absolutely can.
It's on Canada, who needs to start becoming less predictable. And we've been saying this about the Steelers' offensive coordinators for years.
Right.
So that is my case about Matt Canada. My next loser, I'm going to say the offensive line. They just suck. Like, I'm just going to be straight up honest. They're bad.
They were letting guys through. I mean,
they're bad at their job.
There wasn't too much that Mitch Trubisky could honestly do. There wasn't a whole ton that Najee could do. And it just leads to risk for injuries when your offensive line is that bad. In fact, we saw this with the Bengals with their O-line before they paid a bunch of guys, did we not, with Burrow?
Yes, we literally did. And it's just the issue is they don't invest the high draft capital that they need to invest into the offensive line. Instead, you're drafting guys like Kenny Pickett and Najee Harris and Pat Freiermuth.
Which I should mention, again, they're not bad picks on the surface, but when you realize, like, okay, people will say you should only draft an O-line when it's by far and away your biggest need. Is that not the case?
It totally is.
It completely is the case if you watch that game.
You're talking George Pickens is another one.
And again, these are not bad players at all.
They are not bad players. But when you consider the fact that what they need is an offensive line, then to draft these guys over drafting legitimate offensive line help, which you need, and instead drafting Kendrick Green in the third round.
Yeah, no.
It doesn't work. You need to invest high-level capital in offensive line. Next year, I will go as far as to say, if the Steelers' first 3 picks in the draft are not offensive linemen, I am going to be mad. And to the Steelers fans that say, throw Kenny Pickett out there in the offense would be better, Kenny Pickett would be getting killed behind this line even worse. I would go as far as to say, the offensive line is so bad that if you throw Kenny Pickett out there, you are going to ruin his career.
I don't even disagree. I really don't.
You are going to ruin Kenny Pickett's career if you throw him out behind this offensive line. And so far, even the free agency guys we brought in, Mason Cole has been completely mediocre, which honestly is better than what we normally have. Aside from the fact that Mason Cole got hurt halfway through the game, it's good at J.C. Hassenauer. And then James Daniels has just been a disappointment.
Mm-hmm.
He's not... He was supposed to be this guy, supposed to be borderline Pro Bowler. And sure, we made a couple of great signings in this offseason, like Miles Jack and Levi Wallace, who also got hurt today, but was playing well beforehand.
Yes.
And James Daniels does not look to be that, which kind of sucks.
I think Devin Bush also, we should mention, needs to be better.
Actually, I am going to disagree with you. Devin Bush played great in the Cincinnati game. He had a very good game. I know it's normal to trash on Devin Bush, but just because of his preseason, but he had like 7 tackles. He was all over the place. Don't just crap on Devin Bush because it's a popular thing to do to crap on Devin Bush. Devin Bush played a very good game. In fact, I'd go as far as say Devin Bush. Add him to the winners category.
Wow. All right.
Yeah, I'm gonna veto you on
Okay.
that.
Oh, fair enough.
I'm going to veto you on the Devin Bush slander of the day.
All right.
So with that, we're going back to the offensive line. Yeah, no, they have to get better. And I don't think that they can. I don't think that they have the ceiling to. Maybe James Daniels can get better. The one offensive lineman who I think that I'd give credit to is Chukwuekorfor.
Yes.
Who is pretty good. I like Chukwuekorfor. I was questionable about the money that they paid him in the offseason, but I would say that I respect the performance that we've been getting from him.
Yeah.
So you gotta like how Chooks has been, but the rest of them kind of need to get better.
Yeah.
And then my next loser in the losers category is Najee Harris. I just feel like, as a whole, even with the offensive line not being great today, Najee didn't play a good enough of a game to really make up for any of their mistakes.
Yeah, I really like to show...
He had maybe one run today where I was like, okay, nice play, Najee. And the rest of it's just kind of been like,
I think what you want to see out of him is you want to see some more of that athleticism and some of that speed that you see, with the tape from Bama, of course, as well as the first year from the Steelers.
It's not even that. I wouldn't even say it's the athleticism and speed. It's the vision. If there is a hole, Najee needs to hit that hole because with our offensive line, God knows how long that hole is going to actually stay open for. So the answer is not a long time. But Najee Harris is kind of just Najee Harris. So I have faith that he can rebound from this down week, and even if it's not New England, due to the fact that he will be playing hurt probably, I would still expect him to rebound and get better as the season goes on. So I am not scared about Najee Harris. I just want to point out that Najee Harris did not have the best game.
I also would like to say this is an ongoing debate for many running backs throughout the league. I think Saquon Barkley would be a perfect example of that, where you've got just extremely talented running backs with bad offensive lines. And it just, where do you say, okay, it's the offensive line's fault versus do you get to a point, what point do you say, okay, now this is the running back that needs to be better? And it's a debate that goes on across the league, I think.
Yeah, no, definitely. There's definitely a debate that goes on across the league between offensive lines and running backs and which ones you'd rather place the blame on. I just feel like Pittsburgh so far places all the blame on the offensive line, and Najee Harris kind of goes off without any blame, and people act like he's automatically a superstar. I'm not so sure if that's completely the case. I still believe in him, but this was not a good week for him.
No.
So I expect you to play better, Najee, if you somehow watch this. But oh yeah, if you also somehow watch this, please sign my jersey. But I love you, Najee, but
yes, Najee, you're elite.
This was not your best week. So from there, I'm trying to think about my various other losers, and I don't really have very many other ones. Chase Claypool played okay. Devin Bush played good. Miles Jack had a good game. The corners played well. The defense played well. Boswell, I wouldn't put him as a winner or a loser. If he made that first 55-yarder, he might have been a winner.
Yeah. I mean, he did win the game for us. He quite literally did win the game
you know
for
what?
us.
Boswell's a winner.
But
there we go.
Yeah. I mean, you can't really give the guy too much crap for missing a 53 if he hits or missing a 56 if he hits a 53. I mean, in a tough road environment particularly as well. I mean, McPherson was worse too, so.
Definitely. And then the one other winner I guess we should mention is Mike Tomlin for having the team prepared.
Yes.
With the black Air Force One energy.
Yes.
I think that.
Going into an AFC North showdown, you got to have some of that, do you not?
You got to have the black Air Force One energy. So, with that is going to be the conclusion of our first Steelers episode. I assume that these will continue to come on throughout the entire season. So we will have one next week for New England by about Tuesday. And it will once again be me and Micah. We're going to talk about another one of our little things this week, which is if we're able to get this video to, let's put it at 30 likes, I am going to post something on the Instagram that I feel like would be interesting. So this week, what I'm thinking is that we are going to collect all of our previous people who have been on the show, and if we get to 30 likes, I am going to have them all send me photos of their experiences at ballparks. With this also, with us being Yinzers, me and Micah have to admit, Micah and me recently went out to Cincinnati to go see the Reds play, and it was
fairly nice.
We ended up getting a doubleheader out of it.
We actually also got a baseball, believe it or not. It wasn't a home run, but it was, I believe, Nick Fraley threw one up to, because we were sitting in the upper deck, threw one up to me, bounced off the railing behind me. I caught it, and he still has to give it to me. It's in his car right now, but we'll settle that a little bit later.
Yes, we will. Or maybe I'll just keep the baseball.
No, I don't know about that, buddy.
But with that, so I also had the opportunity to go to a game in Cleveland. I know Ryan had the opportunity to go to a San Francisco game this year as well.
Giants?
Yes,
Oh,
Ryan
yeah.
was at a San Francisco Giants
That's
game.
definitely one of the ballparks I'd love to visit. The
Definitely.
local park.
And I think that we are also going to be doing tours of both Wrigley Field and also American Family Field. So with that, we also have tons of other people. I know Jimmy, who's been on here previously, has been to a couple Mets games. So we'll have City, we'll have Yankee Stadium, we'll have Ryan has also been up to Boston for Fenway Park.
We'll have to see
So,
if I have any pictures from my Bushfield trip that I went to. It was a few years ago. It was actually right after the Blues won the Stanley Cup. Funny enough, the first time I actually saw the Stanley Cup in person was actually at a baseball game, believe it or not.
So, we're going to have them, all of our baseball photos from all the various baseball stadiums that we've been to. If we get this video to 30 likes, I'm just going to go ahead and post them all on the channel, and you can check them all out and look at them, and, and as that collection continues to build, as we all go to more baseball stadiums, we can continue to add on. I mean, I know this summer I went to Cincinnati with you, and then I also was in Cleveland.
I don't know what else I did baseball park-wise. I don't think I visited any new ones this summer, since I did go to Cincy. It was about 10 years ago. But I think the ballpark's very solid. I think it's a very nice place to see a game. Not as good as PNC Park, clearly, but I thought it was good. I thought it was an enjoyable experience.
No, definitely. It's also a very great environment, Cincinnati as a city. So even though we did beat the Bengals this week, I would genuinely just like to thank the city of Cincinnati for the hospitality that they showed us while we were there. So that's really it. We would like to thank you for this episode of the For the Fans podcast. We will see you next week. And go Steelers.
Go Steelers.